Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Once again, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and check out the links in our description. Today, we have our data management team with us. You can see we have Phil, Jose, and Jason here, and they're going to be talking about optimized quality assurance with data-driven digital transformation. Thank you guys again for joining. And so on the next slide here, I wanted to highlight the KETIV learning program. We've been highlighting this program in a few of our sessions, but this is a subscription-based learning platform. It has both live and on-demand training for products in the Autodesk product design and manufacturing collection. This program comes with your own KETIV advisor, personalized learning plans, and unique workshops each quarter. You can learn more about the program and see all the benefits on our website by scanning this code with your phone, or I'll drop the link in the chat as well for you guys to check it out if you'd like to learn more and improve your training, especially because it will cover products that you'll see used today. Please be sure to also check out, at the end of the session, we'll have a link so that you can give us feedback. You can let us know what topics you would like to see covered and let us know how we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat, and I will let our data management team take it away. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks, Christina. Welcome, everybody, to today's session on PLM quality management with talking about your digital transformation. Today's agenda: introductions, got a couple of poll questions. What's PLM? PLM's relationships and the quality scenario. We'll do a small demo at the end here in the PLM tool, and then we'll have questions, Q&A afterwards. So, meet the panelists. We have Jason Cordemanch. He is our Vault and PLM architect. Jose Perez Clara, and he is our Vault engineer. And I'm Phil Steiger. I oversee the data management and automation team here at KETIV. So let's go into the poll question. Bring up the poll question. Couple of poll questions. Product life cycle management. How many of you guys are actually using PLM today? You have a couple of choices there. And then the second question is, what stage are you at in your digital transformation journey? Give you guys a couple seconds here to answer those questions. And hopefully now we can see what the results are.
Yeah, and the question, the answer to one should be technically yes. It looks like we got 50 on yes and no, but I think we all have PLM, right, in our processes. But in this case, it's just digital PLM and stuff like that. And then digital transformation journey looks like we have digital drawings and incorporated PDM and PLM. So both.
Good mix.
Yeah. And both good spots. We obviously we try to help our customers get away from paper drawings. A lot of them have, but it's something we can definitely help move towards and help with PDM and PLM in this case.
I noticed I skipped ahead a slide. I got a little excited there on the poll question stuff. So first, let's talk about what is PLM. And I'll hand it over to Jason and Jose to talk more about what PLM really is.
Yeah, so at a high level, PLM is product lifecycle management, and like Jose mentioned, you all are probably already doing this to some degree, whether it's a formal process, but every company has a life cycle for a product in terms of idea creation, end of life, and then archive, and everything in between. And so, when I think of PLM, I think of, it's that higher level. It's not just engineering. It's not just a good idea. It's not just selling it, but it's the entire life cycle from maintenance to every aspect of the process. And PLM as a tool, really involves the necessary groups along the process, because, it's not the same people that make it, or the same people that, maintain it. It's a long life cycle that really requires a lot of different departments, a lot of different personas. And so I think of PLM as that umbrella that really kind of encapsulates the entire process.
Yeah, it definitely helps with handoff, I would say. So like Jason mentioned, all those groups that handle different parts of the process. How do you hand that off? If we're talking digital transformation wise, if you're doing ECOs, ECNs, things like that, paper process. So we're talking about paper drawings. ECOs also were handled in paper process as well. You have the idea of handoff being, hey, I dropped this off on your desk 2 days ago. And then it got lost under a pile of papers. And then all of a sudden, it's urgent. PLM overall helps with that as far as the tool that we're going to talk about today. It helps with that because, you get the notifications, you get the visual reminders of all these things that are coming your way. So yeah, definitely feel like it's a good tool to have.
And it can become the single source of truth for your organization along your engineering processes.
Absolutely. Kind of brings it all in that one place. And really ties in all kinds of other processes and other tools together so that they're not all siloed to get, whether it's partners or tools, but really brings it all into one ecosystem.
You can bring your CRM, your ERP, and your engineering data all in one place. And you're not having to, the other benefit is you're not having to purchase licenses for all three of those, groups, those applications. Everybody can consume it at the PLM level and not have to, and put data in there, and it can be pushed back to a CRM or a ERP or a vault. And you're saving on license costs. That's a big benefit.
Yeah. I was going to say that's a good point there. You mentioned kind of connecting to those other systems. PLM can do that. You can, either feed information to your other systems like your ERP systems, or grab information from Vault, for example, as far as revision levels and things like that. So all of that is doable and can be integrated into PLM.
Yeah, and as we'll see shortly, it's like thinking about the change process and how do we get the right information back to the right stakeholder. So, for instance, if we think about probably one of the most familiar processes, like, an RMA, I buy something, it breaks, I want to return it. Or it's like getting that information back to the company, so that you have a satisfied customer, but also so that whatever the issue is documented. And as we can see here, this PLM relationship kind of shows at a high level the different workspaces and how everything kind of flows together. And we'll get more granular here in a minute. But if we think about it, it's like RMAs, to be able to use that workspace, then we really need to then kind of do a CAPA report, corrective action, problem action report. And then from there, document the change requests, which then goes to the change order, which then, affects the item and bombs, which then affects the product and the released revision. And so it's easy to forget that all these things can be tied together, especially if you're used to a paper process like Jose was mentioning, but getting the right information to the right groups to make the decision and tracking the life cycle, because it's, if one person has a defect, maybe they just use the product wrong. But if 1% of your customer base is all having the same issue, that's a different experience.
Yeah, and all of these could be going to different areas again. So it could be like start off in quality, but eventually as it makes it over to change orders, then we get engineering involved. They're in charge of making the changes as well as approving some of them and communicating that back. So it's all a big web interconnected. We'll see that, like Jason mentioned, in a little bit here, as far as how that looks inside of Fusion 360 Manage here, which is the Autodesk PLM tool, and how, even though it is a lot of information, it can be separated into relevant buckets as well as structured to show only what's necessary. And we can control all that by groups. We can control all of that by, just the design of the tool overall. But for those of you that aren't familiar, some of these round boxes here are what are known as workspaces within Fusion or 360 Manage. So different areas, right, that we were talking about, RMA, which can lead into a Kappa, and then change requests and change orders. These are all different areas of Fusion 360 Manage. But then you also see arrows going out to NetSuite, Vault. We can hold flat files in there. This is all information that we can capture inside of inside of Fusion 360 Manage, and kind of just have give people access to different groups within the environment.
You want to take over, Jose, and share your screen?
Yeah, and a minute before he does that, it's good to really kind of, the thing that I love about this diagram is that it shows the importance of why a lot of people choose to start with item and bonds, because at the end, if you want to turn on or use, let's say, RMA, like you could capture that information, but if you don't have a place to tie it back to what you're actually changing, it's hard to just use that one workspace, because then you have things that are disconnected. And so this is part of the reason it's very more obvious to see in this relationship diagram of why a lot of people start with item and bonds, and then you can add the change orders, which then makes it easier to then think about change requests, and then from there, the Kappa and then RMA. And so sometimes it's very tempting to be like, oh, I really want to we need the RMA feature. But this is a good example of why sometimes it's good to take a step back and look at your processes, look at the tool, and think about how data flows, not just engineering data, but also process data, request and change order data, and what makes sense for your environment. Because every company is different, everyone's processes are different. Different departments handle different things, and it's really good to take a step back and really think about, if we talk about digital transformation, especially when we think about getting away from like a completely digital process, getting rid of all paper, how to do that and kind of create a plan. And this is, just one part of a much bigger plan. Because without customer data, it's kind of hard to tie that to, that's why RMAs are attached to, Salesforce or really any customer relationship management, because you need a sales order so that you have a complete picture. And so this is a tool that helps you build a complete picture of the entire life cycle of a product, from design to creation to if there's any issues, how were those issues resolved, from the request all the way down to engineering fixing it, whether it's changing a part, making the changes needed to resolve whatever the issues are, and seeing how that product changes, because some products evolve and then others don't evolve as fast, and just kind of depends on the type of industry you're in. If you're making a product for one customer that's built in place versus a cell phone company that's making hundreds of millions of the same thing. Every company needs something different, but everyone is trying to get to a digital paperless environment.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of I saw the amount of connections here between the workspaces, and it triggered is it 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Is that the saying where everything
7 degrees of separation?
There you go. Yeah. So like items and bombs is at that center, and any path that you take, you can you're like 5 degrees away from it, and you're always kind of leading back to it. So it's kind of what that triggered. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. That way we can go ahead and take a look. Bill, do you want to stop your share so I can start mine? All right. And we're going to share screen too. And then we're going to bring up Fusion 360 Manage. So we talked a little bit about it. But it is a web-based product, so that's one of the nice things there, right? Like we're talking about different groups needing access to it and different groups, placing their information in there. But because it is a web-based tool, you can access it from either within the network or, from home or on the go, kind of thing. So every, I guess, tenant, every environment is unique to each customer, each company. So only they'll have access to the data within the information, but within the tenant. But here we can see that we're starting off in our RMA workspace. I talked a little bit about the different workspaces earlier. It's just kind of silos for the information to make sure that the relevant information is available and front and center. You'll see here that for RMAs in this case, we have 7 different sections that we can kind of put information into, depending on the type of that it is. And we can control the different kinds of information that we have in here. Every field that we have, every field type that you need, we can put inside of the different sections. Now, the nice thing here is, if there's information that is sensitive, even internally, right? So if there's certain areas that you don't want users to see, we can kind of limit that by permissions. So you'll see here for RMAs in general, you'll have different teams that can take over, who's in charge of approving this process. Each workspace can have its own approval workflow. We'll see that it can change as we go through the different workspaces, but you can create, this is pretty much up for grabs as to how complicated or how simple you want it to be, what the names are of the different stages, who's in charge of them. You can design that to match your workflow, right? Not everybody uses the same one, so we can do that within Fusion 360 Manage. But we talked about everything being connected. So, once we have the RMA, is there any action that we have to take moving forward? Does it have to happen automatically? And one of the things that can happen is generating a CAPA, so a corrective and preventative action that can happen from there. And you'll see that there's a direct link to the related CAPA that gets spawned or gets created. So if I open this up, what it would do is take me to the corrective and preventative actions workspace. And you'll see here that's where we're taken to for that record. And once again, the information is different. In this case, we have 9 different sections of information, and we can, list that out, format it the way that we need it, and once again, kind of progress through the workflow that we need to happen. If we look back at the diagram that Phil had up, all these workspaces kind of have those arrows kind of having relationships to each other. In this case, from CAPA, we go to change request, and that would generate this change request. And, just approval workflow. We saw the one that we had previously with RMAs kind of being a pretty straightforward path. It can be followed in one direction, while our change request kind of looks a little different, right? We could have different paths, we could have different things happen, and this will happen, throughout the different workspaces. You can have, the different workflows. And then again, going back into details, it all leads to, it'll show you here again, whether or not, where it's coming from. So this is the related CAPA that it came from. It's all kind of interconnected. We can go back and forth. I talked a little bit about automating certain processes or certain actions. One of them that we have here is generating COs or change orders. We're in a change request. We're kind of doing that first step, whether trying to figure out whether this change should actually happen, kind of vetting it before it moves forward. We do have the option here to create change orders on approval, and that just means it'll automatically grab certain information from the change request and push it over to a change order to make, eliminating some of that manual process. One of the things that, I've seen in the past, in my previous role, or even with certain customers, it's a lot of the complaints that we get is information misinput, right? Kind of, we all make typos, and sometimes it's just repetitive motions over and over. It just happens more often than not. So kind of generating these change orders on approval just means, hey, once this change request gets approved, give me a change order, grab all this relevant information, and you get to pick and choose what that information is, right? You don't want to put everything over there. You get to pick and choose the fields that get carried over. Some of the other workspaces that we have are non-conformances. We saw that in the mapping there, where it can be sort of related. But the reason I bring this up is we're 5 degrees of separation from items and bombs. So the item that we're talking about in this non-conformance form is an enclosure, right? And an injection molded PC part. If we click on that, it'll take us all the way to the item itself. It'll give us the information relative or relevant to this item, and kind of give us all the information that we need. Again, everything interconnected. We have related changes. If you ever need to get from one area to another, we have a change order here that this item was a part of. We talked about flat files and different kind of information that's relevant. We have some DWFs, which are visualization files that people can view, as well as, if you do have any spec sheets or anything like that that you would like attached to these items and these part numbers, you'd be able to attach those as well. But this is just one of the many uses that you have within PLM, specifically with quality, right? All of this kind of spawned from that RMA, from that 1% of customers that kept sending back a product with a specific problem. And then, eventually it becomes, okay, like Jason said, is it user error? Are these people just not using the product correctly? Or is it specific conditions that are causing this? It could be within the use case, but specific conditions that are causing this to fail, kind of launching this investigation, and eventually all kind of going back to this RMA.
And the cool thing, like Jose was mentioning, is like, because it's so customizable, you can have custom drop downs. Like, is this caused by a manufacturing defect? Is this an engineering, like, design problem related issue? Is it a tolerance issue? Is it an end user issue? Is it getting damaged by shipping? By having custom fields like that, it really allows you to create dashboards and reports and really be able to get that high level overview of like what's going on with this product and how is that affecting the customers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I went ahead and created a new RMA here, but some of these drop-down menus, so like title here is a text field, right? So I can type in whatever I want. But like Jason mentioned, if we need specific drop-down menus, we can even link those to other workspaces within Fusion. So these are all products that have been created inside of Fusion, and we're able to pick from them. So, as they get put into an obsolete state, or as they get put into, a unavailable state, they drop off this list, or as you create new ones, you get new ones, it kind of updates as you go. But that's one of the beauties of customizing your fields, is you get to pick and choose what you want. Different codes, kind of allow you to mold this to your process.
And especially depending on the industry. Like, if you have, let's say, if you're in an industry where you have technicians to go out and service equipment, they can document what they're seeing and feed the information back. And so it gives you the flexibility to really anyone and any of your processes, it's a way of getting the data back and then disseminating that information to the right stakeholders to get the changes to happen. Especially, when you have the information where you're like, oh, this tech is going to go to this customer. This customer has version 1. Let me go grab that part because I know that we need to fix it to bring them up to the current standard, because we know it'll eventually fail because we have all these other customers that have already reported the failure. Now we can take proactive support. My experience is it's far easier to keep a customer happy with the proactiveness than to win them back.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, on servicing, it kind of helps with tribal knowledge too. Like maybe you have someone that's been, you know, fixing certain things a certain way when they see it. But you know, in reality, if it's easier for them to report it, to input this information, you know, you can catch a lot of these things where, you know, if that person leaves, then nobody knows how to fix it anymore. It kind of just causes a little bit more of a fire than if you're able to get ahead of it, like Jason mentioned. Um, I think we can go back to the presentation here.
Yeah, if we go back to that diagram for a second.
Can do that.
So
There you
as
go.
we can see, it's like, it might just be an arrow, but the nice thing, what's really abstracted in that arrow, like Jose showed us, is all that metadata from one workspace can be shared or linked to the next one. And the real benefit is, eliminating duplicate data entry and being able to just pass information as needed so that end users are only entering it in once. And then you have all of the records dynamically linked together so that no matter which workspace you're in, you can follow the breadcrumbs and get to the data that you need without having to spend too much time searching for it.
So we did this.
Yeah.
We'll go to our Q&A. Anybody online have a question about the presentation or anything else about PLM or the digital transformation?
Here's a question. What's the best way to get started?
Items and bulks.
I would agree because, it's great to have change orders. It's great to have all these things, but the real power is being able to tie that back to either an item or bomb or at least to a product so that you have a way of keeping your data connected. And that takes a process, especially when we looked at that big list. It's like, especially for RMAs, having that connected to a customer relationship information so that you have it tied to the customer. So is like, are all your defects from two customers? Like, what are those two customers doing their product if no one else is having an issue? It's all about getting enough data to be able to paint a realistic picture about what's going on. And that we do that by like getting all the information in one place so that all the business units can have access to it. And with the level of security, you can make sure that everyone has the level of access and the level of data they need.
Yeah. And I mean, with that, it's one of the reasons. So we talked earlier in our poll question about PDM versus PLM kind of thing. One of the reasons I talk about PDM being good is, visibility and accountability. You have visibility into everyone that's making decisions, everyone that's making changes. When those were made, it's all tracked in the tool. So you're able to kind of just follow along that process the whole time. And make sure that, the record is true. You can't really fudge the numbers in PLM because the actions that you do are being recorded. So you're able to track everything. It helps with one of the workspaces that you saw there was audits, paper trails. It's a lot easier to follow those paper trails when you have the reports that are generated. You have the right, who made them, when they were made, kind of accounted for.
And the thing that's nice about PLM is that it's customizable. It's like we saw in some of those workflows. Some of them are complex. Some companies don't need that. And we're the adage of it's like finding that right balance of like, just because you can add a second or third or a fourth or a fifth state doesn't mean that you should just because you can. It's finding that balance of like, how do you optimize it for your process to capture the data you need without making it too complex so that people don't want to use it. And a lot of that goes with taking a step back and really looking at your process, really looking at what problems you're trying to solve, um, and starting from that place versus let's just turn everything on.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I've been on that side. We use it. It's just like sometimes I found explaining why it's being done helps a lot, because a lot of people will see it as just another tool that they have to use and it's part of their process, but they don't understand the underlying reasons. But as soon as you kind of break that out for them, they start seeing the benefit. They start seeing, okay, this is helpful for me in the long run, as opposed to, it's just another 10 minutes that I have to add to my process.
Sometimes it saves you time somewhere else, so.
Exactly. And a lot of the times it's just a learning curve, right? It is a new tool, it's new buttons, you don't know where anything is. And I'm sure all of us were like that, even just using computers in general. It's like, where was that? And then now it's just second nature. And that's the same thing with Fusion, I would say, or PLM in general. It's just making sure that adoption is just constantly going and people are using it. Because a lot of the times, if someone, water will always go with the path of least resistance, right? So if you allow people to have a different way to get around things, they'll definitely do it if it's easier. So you just have to make sure that you make this path easiest for them to use, and B, if it's not as simple as the other way, but it gives you additional benefits, then you want to make sure that you eliminate the other path. You want to make sure that they have to go through the expected and dedicated path.
Absolutely. This other question, which is, if you have Vault and you have an ERP, what's the best way to get started? And I always come back to, like we saw, you start with items, and it goes back to, do you have items? Does your items in your PDM system match your ERP system? Do you have clean data? Because if you don't, the time is to clean it up and get ready, because you don't want to bring in a third system, because now you have 3 systems to clean up. It's far easier to get the part numbers in order, figure out where those are coming from, and then really think about, the source of truth. The PLM can be a source of truth for everything. And that starts with really ironing out the process so that other business units can have access to, whether it's a part catalog or items. But the easiest way to do that is starting with clean data, whether that's cleaning up or, moving forward. But if you're going to have something like PLM all go back to items, then, depending on where you are in your digital transformation, and it can be very easy, if you're, relatively new, and then some companies, have decades worth of information and, 3 or 4 different numbering schemes, and, they have a little bit longer cleanup process, but it's just part of that bigger picture of, getting sucked into, the tools. It always goes back to taking a step back and looking at the process and really thinking about how you can clean up the process, and does these processes make sense? And part of that is also cleaning up, where do parts numbers start? Does it start in the ERP? Does it start in PDM? Does it start in PLM? There's pros and cons to all of it, but from what we see, it all comes back down to clean data.
Okay, if you have clean data on Vault and you have clean data in your ERP, I come from IT and you're having a hard time selling PLM to the company. One of the first steps you might think about is connecting your Vault to your ERP to show the benefit of having the connected systems. That could be a easy, quick first step, and how much time it'll save on your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can win over management pretty quickly when you show that process, and then you can go and say, hey, think about it in a bigger picture. If we had like a PLM now that connected that and then connected other systems and other information. Sometimes you have to take small bites out of the apple to eat the whole apple.
Or even just seeing the clean data might not be the full picture either. Like maybe it's clean now, which is good. You got to it, but on the path there, wrong part numbers might have been input the first time, which caused this back and forth, kind of capturing that information too and saying, okay, if we have this integration, you don't have to worry about this. The data comes over clean. You don't have to manually input it anywhere and manage it in 2 locations at that point.
Yes. Any other questions? If we don't have any other questions, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you have a great week. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.